Yes, so good afternoon, everybody. I'm Erika Giuliani from the Réseau Art Nouveau network, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome you today to this appointment, a workshop dedicated to the personality, the artist, and the artistic adventure of Galileo Chini. And the intent today is really to show how which was the influence of Art Nouveau on his production. So I give immediately the floor to Benedetta Diamanti, that is the director of European Route of Ceramics, that launched this initiative. Please.
Good afternoon. For the European Route of Ceramic, it's really a pleasure to welcome you to this international conference promoted together by two cultural itineraries of the Council of Europe, the European Route of Ceramics and the Réseau Art Nouveau. In fact, the wonderful exhibition was taking place now at the International Museum of Ceramics gave us, since the very beginning, the idea to create a moment for further study and cultural exchange at the crossroad of those two cultural roots, at the crossroad of the themes and the activities of the two cultural roots, as in fact is recommended, strictly recommended by the Council of Europe. In fact, I think it's very important now to go on with the program in order to start quickly with our speakers, as we are anxious to hear their surely interesting contribution. So I thank you very much, and I let the floor to our president, the president of the European Route of Ceramics, Massimo Isola.
Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for attending this interesting conference. First of all, I would like to thank the speakers and the coordinators of this event, the directorates and staff of the two cultural routes, Réseau, Art Nouveau, and the European Route of Ceramics, and the MIC Museum for their work. We are honored today of the presence of Mr. Stefano Dominioni, Director of the European Institute of Cultural Roads of the Council of Europe. Today's conference marks a crossroad between Art Nouveau and ceramics in Europe, specifically where the diffusion of the Art Nouveau movement and its artistic and historical heritage influenced the ceramics production, encouraging innovation and new points of view in this multi-purpose material. The prestigious Galileo Chini exhibition at the MIC Faenza Museum offers an example of an artist who transferred and translated the Art Nouveau features into artistic ceramic, a representation of a dialogue and connection about the themes of our cultural roots, which I am sure will be of great interest for the respective publics and an opportunity to discover more and share our experiences in many other occasions in the future. Thank you.
Time of Stefano Dominioni, the Executive Secretary of Cultural Routes and Cultural Routes Director, Cultural Routes of the European Institute of Cultural Routes and of the Council of Europe.
Good afternoon from the Council of Europe Cultural Routes headquarters in Luxembourg to the participants in this symposium on the influence of Art Nouveau in the ceramic production of Galileo Chini, organized by the European Route of Ceramics and the Art Nouveau network. My sincere gratitude and my best greetings to the president of the European Route of Ceramics, Massimo Isola, and the director of the route, Ms. Benedetta Diamanti. My also greetings to the Art Nouveau network president, Mr. Benjamin Zurstrassen, and to Erika Giuliani, the manager of the Art Nouveau network. First of all, congratulations for launching this activity and this symposium internationally, promoting the network and the synergy between two cultural routes of the Council of Europe. This is a very welcome initiative, and I really should highlight this as a best practice when several of our cultural routes certified by the Council of Europe come together to mutually promote their activities and to find common ground, to find common activities, such as in the case of the ceramic production of Art Nouveau. This is such a wonderful and innovative idea. So very much congratulate you on this aspect. Few words on the cultural roots of the Council of Europe program. As you know, the program is witnessing a very important growth in the last few years. We now welcome 48 certified cultural routes. Among those, the European Route of Ceramics and the Réseau Art Nouveau. This is quite an impressive achievement over the last few years, and also the commitment of the member states of the Council of Europe is growing, with 37 member states that are very, very active in the field of promoting cultural routes at national level, with the intervention and the cooperation of the ministries of culture and the ministries of tourism and as well foreign affairs. In the last few years, the program has also grown in terms of network members, both in the European Route of Ceramics and the Art Nouveau, but also across the 48 certified cultural routes. We now count almost 4,000 network members crisscrossing the 46 member states of the Council of Europe and beyond, reaching countries far away as Asia and Latin America. So this to show you how successful the program has been in the last few years. In addition to this, I'm happy to report on the growth of funding. Last year only 10.5 million euros were disbursed in terms of EU funding throughout the cultural routes of the Council of Europe program, and already this year we have been collecting data on the many successful projects that have received EU funding recently. The program has also been developing politically with agreements with the World Tourism Organization and with a steady cooperation with the European Union through joint programs, but also in the framework of two resolutions of the European Parliament that recently highlighted the importance of the enlarged partial agreement on cultural routes of the Council of Europe and of the work of the cultural routes. Very recently, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe has prepared a report on the value of cultural routes for promoting intercultural dialogue and for promoting also local development. Local development and cultural tourism that was already highlighted in a report issued 2 years ago by the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities of the Council of Europe. So this is all very good news, and the initiative of both European Route of Ceramics and Art Nouveau to jointly launch a common initiatives is also very much welcome. So we look forward to continuing promoting your work, to also welcoming you to activities this year. There will be a certification and re-evaluation, as you know, in Luxembourg with the governing board of the IPA, but both Art Nouveau Network and Ceramics successfully passed with full marks the last evaluation, but we very much look forward to seeing you at the Training Academy of the Cultural Roots. This year will be hosted by the Rock Art Trails in Lascaux, France, and maybe in the years to come in in Italy along the ceramics or along the Art Nouveau network in Belgium or elsewhere in Europe. And also we look forward to seeing you at the annual forum. Last year, Greece hosted a very successful event with over 400 representatives. This year, it will be Poland who will be hosting a very interesting forum on post-industrial urban development in the city of Łódź. The training academy will take place in May, and the annual forum will be taking place in September. So with these introductory remarks, I wish you a very good online debate, and I know there are a number of also academics and universities that are involved in the presentation of all the work at the crossroads between ceramics and Art Nouveau. University of Sevilla, University of Verona, a museum as well. So this is great news to show also the multidisciplinary aspect of the work you do. So thank you again for the invitation, and I very much wish you a very productive colloquium. Thank you.
Yes, now it's time to let our experts have the floor. And we begin with Professor Barberan, who is Professor of Architectural History at the University of Seville. And the title of his speech is What We Talk About When We Talk About Modernism in Spain. Please, Professor Barberan.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. What I'm trying to say, to open the file. I don't know if you are now watching it.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank to the staff who has been working in this workshop, especially focused on Claudia Casali, which is we did it at Museo di Faenza, and I would like especially to say thanks to Professor Valerio Terraroli, who thought that probably my contribution could be, well, unless, if not important, unless interesting for this workshop. Well, the idea I had was to talk about ceramic in Spain, about relation between ceramic and what we call modernismo in Spain, and that's the reason that I opened my presentation, my lecture with this idea. What we talk about when we talk about modernism in Spain. In fact, I'm not original. I'm just making an appropriation, but a cultural appropriation of a very beautiful book by Raymond Carver, the American writer Raymond Carver, because in fact, I thought that finally talking about modernismo, about Art Nouveau in Spain, means talking about several stories, different stories. There are two main ideas I had when I was preparing this lecture. First of all, make you know what means modernismo and, well, exactly, what means Art Nouveau all over Europe, and what means Art Nouveau in Spain, and make you understand, well, something complex, which is only a word, but important word, which is modernismo. At the same time, I thought about the context, talking about Galileo Chini, talking about ceramics. So I decided to, well, why not think about the relationship between ceramics and Art Nouveau in Spain? And at the very same time, why not to open some other field in the relation between ceramics and architecture in Spain as a sort of epilogue, talking about what happened in Spain after Art Nouveau, after modernismo. So I try to look at the general landscape of Art Nouveau all over Europe, and I try to understand that evolution which goes to Art Nouveau, to Art Deco, and sometimes to modernism, express that in Spain we have got a sort of problem, a problem with the words, but the words finally are important, because we have got a word that sometimes can move to confusion. If you are talking about Art Nouveau in Spain, you talk about modernismo. In fact, you find that that sort of going words from a place to another, going words from, for example, Barcelona to Germany, to some other countries in Europe. And I would like to say, well, let's talk about it. Try to clear to people which is not familiarized with expression in Spain, what's happening here. So there are four short stories, and the first one I call a very important word. When you walk, for example, in the city of Barcelona, you find some pieces like this one, Ruta del Modernisme. They use expression in Catalan, but modernisme or modernismo is the same thing. We have got the Art Nouveau, as I say here, Belgium and France and all over the world, USA, Alemania for us, Germany, Liberty for United Kingdom, Liberty too for Italy, secession in Vienna, but we have got a different word. The word modernismo was used many, many years ago. For example, at the very beginning of the 20th century, with talking about that new expressions which were coming from Europe, they wrote about arte moderno, arte nuevo, modern style, which sometimes, of course, it can move up to confusion, because arte nuevo is a absolutely straight translation for Art Nouveau. Arte moderno, sometimes you don't know what to talk about it. Modern style, it's not so clear. Remember that thing, when a so important architect of the European Art Nouveau, of the European first times during the 20th century, especially in Vienna, like Otto Wagner, when he wants to publish his works, he wrote a book whose name was Moderne Architecture. The idea of establishing a parallel between modern and Art Nouveau in Spain was very usual. For example, not only in the beginning of the 20th century, when we read, for example, a text by the very well avant-garde painters, surrealist painters about Dalí, he uses the word modern style when he's talking about Art Nouveau, when he's talking about what we finally will express like modernismo. And in fact, during the 50s, 60s, you will find a very, very important bibliography when you see that arte modernista means the expression of Art Nouveau in Spain, in Catalonia. So nowadays, if you read a book, for example, about modernismo Catalan, about modernismo in Spain, you are talking about this. If you read about the Casa Milà by Antonio Gaudí, in the text you find Spanish, you will find that it's an obra del modernismo, or the adjective obra modernista. Of course, something very different in the same city, in Barcelona. If you, for example, are reading about Mies van der Rohe German pavilion for the exhibition in Barcelona 1929, you will find expressions obra del movimiento moderno, obra de la modernidad, obra moderna. Of course, you are not talking about Art Nouveau. You are talking about is generally considered like a work of the modernism, a work of the modern architecture, of the modern art belonging to 20th century architecture. Confusion is for us really complex because, for example, as a professor, as a docent, I have talked to my students continuously. Well, establish the difference between modernismo and modernidad. And sometimes happens what you see here in the Spanish translation of the book by Fiona McCarthy on Walter Gropius, founder of the Bauhaus. You continuously read about modernist architects, modernism in Bauhaus. By the translation, you read arquitecto modernista, modernismo en la Bauhaus, which for the academic in Spain is something that sounds very strange, because for us, modernista as an adjective, modernismo as a substantive, as a name, they all are thinking, we all think about Art Nouveau in Spain. That's a thing I would like to establish clearly in the beginning of this speech, because you know, sometimes for you can be a very difficult way if you are looking for an article, if you are looking for any reference, to know exactly the difference. And on the other hand, and last but not least, as you could say, for example, find that if you are reading texts in Polish in South America and Latin America, you will find easily things like this. A very recent number of periodical publication in Venezuela, the name is Modernismo, and of course you see that photograph of the Ville Savoie by Le Corbusier, and you'll find names like Walter Gropius, Mies, Frank Lloyd Wright, by the way, with horrible mistakes in their names. So modernismo for us in Spain is absolutely equivalent. If we talk about chronology, if we talk about the main characteristics, if we talk about the society that surrounded modernismo, is literally a synonym, an expression which can be absolutely translated for the general and European Art Nouveau. Say, for example, that the problem is not only in Spain. In an exhibition which took place in Rome some years ago, the title of the exhibition and the title which you can see in this catalog by Electa Editorial, see Gaudí e il modernismo catalano. Sometimes the confusions can be very difficult to be removed. Well, I had the intention to talk about Spanish modernismo, Spanish Art Nouveau. Second thing I'm interested, because I think that this is very close to that work that you can find when you study ceramics, when you study how this sort of ornament and technique is moving all over Europe. I would like you to know something which is for me very important. If Spanish Art Nouveau, if Spanish modernismo is a matter of ornament or a matter of electronics, both things at the very same time. When you look at this work, and a seminar work for the European Art Nouveau, the House, the Hotel Tassel in Brussels, you see that if you talk about Art Nouveau, you are talking about an integral design for all different ways of understanding arts and crafts. But here you see that something very important is that finally, at the end of the 19th century, that gap between ornament and structure was finally resolved. Ornament and structure can be operating at the very same time. You don't need to have a hidden structure for by the ornament. No, structure and the ornament are finally part of the same expression in architecture. For example, if you pay attention to a very well-known work by Antonio Gaudí, House Batlló, Casa Batlló in Barcelona, you see, for example, something similar, something parallel to the one we have seen in Victor Horta Hotel Tasser in Brussels. We have seen these photographs from Barcelona, and of course you see the clear parallel between both things. So we think that the problem of the tectonics is clearly solved in Spanish modernismo. I would say no. I would say that Spanish modernismo, in Spanish modernismo, in Spanish Art Nouveau, for me, the ornament is something much more important than tectonics, than the structure. It is impossible not to look at another example by Victor Horta, La Maison du Père in Brussels, because you here see how clear can be the relationship between structure and ornament. Something that, for example, in Spain is not so clear. I have chosen another word by Gaudí. Yes, not more than 200-300 meters from the other house, the Casa Batlló, which Casa Milà, which we call La Pedrera. And for example, you see here, well, what is the structure of this work? And if you pay attention to that old photograph during the construction of the building, you see that the structure finally is absolutely hidden from because of all the elements that are used in the facade of this building, because finally structure and ornament can finally become isolated things, but not always. In the same La Pedrera, if you pay attention to the roof of this building, which and we will return to this roof in a few minutes. Here you find a structure like this, a structure very clearly concerned to say, well, I've got an idea of the structure, which finally became at the very same time ornament. And you think, okay, that's a vision of the Spanish Art Nouveau, which I see how this let's say more complex and for me more interesting vision of a way of understanding Art Nouveau and modernismo finally arrives. If you look some other words all over Spain, you find the explanation of the thing I told before. What I told before was clearly that in Spain, really, Art Nouveau and modernismo is basically, let's say, like a sort of fashion, like a sort of expression of taste, but not a deep and complex understanding of what Art Nouveau was in a general level. See, for example, expressions of modernismo in Valencia, which is in the Mediterranean area of Spain, Bilbao, in the north of Spain, Jaén, Valencia, La Coruña, in the north of Spain too, Córdoba in Andalusia, or Seville, my own city in Andalusia. When you pay attention to all these images, you think, well, are they talking about? Are they talking to me about structure, about the complexity of this link, and a link that you cannot break between structure and ornament? And finally, you'll say, no, it's a matter of taste. It's a matter of using what is easier to be a part of the architecture, which is finally the ornament. Here you see that if you remove the ornament, there's no complexity about that fact which is inside the architecture, inside the whole renovation of architecture during the 20th century, which is the value of structure. Finally, a portion of tiles, a fragment of tiles there for the decoration of a building, finally say that, well, this is an Art Nouveau, this is a modernist building, a modernista building, but the real is that all this is the easy way of making that especially the bourgeoisie, especially the clients of this architect can say, well, I'm looking at this building exactly like I could see another building in Vienna, in Paris, but the complexity is not the one who finally make that the architecture of the modernismo, of the architecture of Art Nouveau, can open a file, what we call really modernism, what we call in Spain, modernidad, movimiento moderno. You know, finally, it's the triumph of ornament, the triumph of applied art. The triumph of this word would mean a new way of showing the architecture, of appearing in the urban landscape, not deeply understood, like a thing that finally could move to a removal of a renewal, absolute renewal of the architecture. Something important for Spanish Art Nouveau, for Spanish Modernismo, is something that I want to explain clearly. It's life beyond Gaudí. It's life beyond Gaudí in two senses. First of all, if you only pay attention to Barcelona's World Heritage Site by UNESCO, you will find initially 1984 the works of Antonio Gaudí, but 13 years later, two very important buildings of the Art Nouveau, culture, of the Art Nouveau architecture, Il Palau de la Música and the Hospital of San Pau were included in that list UNESCO, making, well, the message is clear. Gaudí is not only the Art Nouveau architect, the modernista architect we must pay attention in Spain. It is clear that Catalonia is a center, the center of gravity. It's that nucleus of the great renovation of Art Nouveau in Spain. Society was open to this. They want to escape from these ugly landscapes, industrial landscape, where all the money came, all the movement of economy came to some beautiful places, and some sense, Art Nouveau, modernismo finally offers that way of escape, that exit to a more beautiful world, a clear sign of identity for this new Catalonia, for this new Barcelona, which was in this moment being something which wanted to look more to Europe instead of looking to Spain, was considered something which has not said goodbye to the 19th century. I want, for example, offer a very, very brief look at some of these architects. Luis Domènech y Montaner, which is the author of this wonderful Hospital de San Pau. See, like a real, let's say, using a German term which moves, especially with the music, and you understand why a Gesamtkunstwerk. Palau de la Música, that great hall of concerts, let's say like a sort of of a non-religious cathedral in Barcelona in the first years of the 20th century. Well, there's a very interesting connection with this workshop, because Réseau Montes, like some other architects, they finally use a sort of technique very peculiar of the Spanish Art Nouveau. The word in Catalan language, trincadís, finally speaks of a sort of a recycle of pieces, or broken pieces of tiles or ceramics that were finally used for the decoration, for the ornament of many important buildings in of the Spanish Art Nouveau, especially in the Catalonian area. For example, to show that life beyond Gaudí, the figure of Josep Maria Jujol. Jujol worked for Gaudí. Jujol was a main, very important for this applied arts, for this art and crafts art which moved to the architecture of Gaudí, using iron, using ceramics, using wood, carved wood, and is the author of some pieces so wonderful like this. A rural house in the landscape of Tarragona, far from Barcelona, where he uses his imagination, but this almost surrealist vision of Art Nouveau, surrealist vision of what he thought that was a popular space of encounter between popular vision of Art Nouveau and the refined vision of Art Nouveau, someone like Gaudí could offer. And at the very same time, I say that this life beyond Gaudí, because in the last years, many authors have studied Gaudí for a more complex vision. Not only thinking that Gaudí is an Art Nouveau, a modernista architect, but he's a very important, a key figure for the architecture in Spain from the end of the 19th century to the 2-3 first decades of the 20th century. In fact, when I try to explain the importance of Antonio Gaudí, I say, well, if you think you have got the main expressions of architecture all over Europe during the years from mid-19th century to the first decades of 20th century, you find an equivalence, of course, with the gap between the work by Gaudí and the works I'm talking about in all over Europe. And Gaudí has got his own Gothic revival, his own version of arts and crafts, of course, his own version of Art Nouveau, the Gaudí del Modernismo, the Gaudí Modernista, and finally, a Gaudí which he knew about the avant-garde. Of course, he was not a man of avant-garde, but he decided to express, to talk about in his architecture, to talk about some relations which can be close to the avant-garde. For example, the very well-known Sagrada Familia finally speaks to us of a Gaudí very close to the Viollet-le-Duc expressions of the architecture, or the one of the Palau Güell, medieval castle inside the historical Barcelona. But if you look at the Gaudí of the Casa Vicens, you finally look at a Gaudí very close to the spirit of arts and crafts, a sort of William Morris spirit. You see the use of tiles and ceramics so important in this work. Of course, when you arrive to the Casa Batlló, you are arriving at in the first years of 20th century, to clearly a Nouveau Gaudí, to a Gaudí Modernista. The Batlló is really the renewal of a house, a very poor house that existed there, and Gaudí uses all the elements of the modernism, of the Art Nouveau, all the techniques, all the materials to give a new face to the house, to make an interior renovation of the house using stone, using iron, and of course using very characteristically these ceramics, this use of pieces of ceramics in his work. Exactly a very similar situation is at the one of Casa Milà. Like Casa Milà conceived as a absolutely new work, very complex new work. Of course, I'm not going to stop here. Where Gaudí tries to develop a new way of understanding urban landscape in Barcelona, with a work which was the center of many controversies about if that should be the vision of a new Barcelona. But finally, the integral design, of course, the so characteristic use of materials. Here again, the trencadís in this very peculiar landscape of the roofs of La Pedrera, sometimes with pieces like which not only recycle ceramics, but recycles too, for example, the glass, as you can see in that image, which finally makes us to understand that Gaudí cannot be isolated like as an architect of Art Nouveau, as an architect of Modernismo, because that relation between Gaudí and nature reappears in a work very interesting by Gaudí. The church of the Colonial Well, a small company town made by Gaudí not far from Barcelona, where his designs and the impression of the work finally is not so far of these designs, European, absolutely coetaneous of Gaudí, absolutely contemporary to Gaudí, for example, of German expressionism. When you enter in this wonderful space by Gaudí, sometimes you feel the same sensation, for example, as the spectators should feel in a so well-known work of European avant-garde of expressionism, like the Glass House by Bruno Todt, made for the Deutsche Werbung exhibition in Köln in 1914. And finally, an epilogue. Epilogue which opens a space that I think will be interesting for a workshop like this, where ceramics are so important, which is the one who opens something different between Modernismo and Art Deco. That sequence, so usual, going from Art Nouveau to Art Deco, not only all over Europe, specifically in Italy, as all of you well know, in Spain is different. Which one is the reason? Well, between this Art Nouveau work in Madrid and this, let's say, Art Deco work in the 30s in a small and a piccolo town, in a small town in Andalusia, in Antequera, is this one. This one, these buildings were built between Art Nouveau and Art Deco. What is the name? What is this? It's what we call in Spain regionalismo. Probably for the importance of this regionalismo in my city and the city of Seville, was initially called estilo sevillano, Sevillian style. Here you have got two expressions of these two different works, not so far in time. This Grand Café de Paris, this way of saying of the owner of the Grand Café de Paris, of the architect, well, you are not here anymore in Seville. You are in a great capital of Europe. You are in Paris. You are in Vienna. You are in Budapest. Okay, was built 1904, 1906 by an architect called Aníbal González. Yes, 1906, 1908. Same architect, are less than 100 meters far from the other one. the architect does the work for another man. Reasons of this change are clear. The architects, the clients said, well, the Art Nouveau finally is moving us from our roots. You need to come back to basics. You need to open the place where nostalgia is hidden. And we feel nostalgia about a lost word, at times in which Spain was so important. Spain had an empire all over the world. That's the reason that finally the Art Nouveau was very, very soon forgotten because of this regionalism. All over Spain, you see architects building at the beginning of the 20th century, over the one you see here, and the same architect, not very far. For clients, we finally were not so different. The other one in a so conservative way. That regionalism appear for train stations, and finally found a very special place to be developed. Because in Seville, there was a great exhibition in 1929, whose origins come from almost 15 years before, the Exposición Iberoamericana, where the idea was creating a sort of very melancholic landscape evocation of past times, in which you see buildings like this, which were works by built in 1910, 1912, 1915, and of course 1925, 26. This place is the one we call Plaza de España. We call it in Seville. We call it in Seville Spanish Square. Well, this Spanish square is full of ceramics. It's full of that handcrafted tiles that finally develop a new vision of Spain. A new vision of Spain against all that ideas of modern life, of modern expressions of art, but something very important for the people who arrived here at Seville from 1929 to our days. This house, this Plaza de España, this Spanish square, is the ideal landscape of a south which can be moved from these 20s to our days. It's an ideal landscape of that south of Spain, of that Spain with a mixture of Moorish style, of aesthetics of some forgotten times, but finally arrived here to offer, let's say, a tourist vision of Seville. This is a very recent deal happening here in the Plaza de España. Finally makes you say, well, is what happened in Spain between modernismo and Art Deco modernidad? Finally, a gap, but a very important gap, if you consider especially the vision that you will have if you travel to Spain, if you travel to the south of Spain, if you are traveling to Andalusia, where talking about ceramics is finally talking about this. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Professor Barberan. We know that you have some other professional obligations, so we really warm thank you, and we leave you to go. But before, we want to thank you for this overview of the evolution of this style of Art Nouveau, Modernismo, Jugendstil, Liberty style that spread throughout Europe at the beginning of 20th century. And now it will be interesting to see how Galileo Chini fitted into this path. So really thank you for this opening, and I hope that this will be just one, the first of other appointments to deepen this argument. So thank you, and now I invite Stefania Cretella, who is a researcher at the University of Verona, or no, sorry, Professor Terraroli, Valerio Terraroli, who is one of the curator of the exhibition, the current exhibition in Faenza, and is a director of the research center for decorative arts, Rossana Basaglia in Verona, and of course professor of museology and history of art criticism at the University of Verona. So please, Professor Terraroli, I leave you to introduce your speech. You should have to turn on your microphone. We can't hear you.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. That's fine. That's perfect.
Non riesco a condividere lo schermo. Stefania, mi dà una mano?
Now it's good. We can see your screen. Yes, okay. That's perfect. Please.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I will read my speech because my English is very poor. Galileo Chini emblematically personifies that epochal shift from historical tradition to modernity, balanced between the legacy of high-class artistic craftsmanship and the necessary need to tackle a national and international market spasmodically searching for novelties. In a sense, Chini belonged to that generation of artists that had to come to terms with several radical changes that brought the issue of the relationship between art and industry for the forefront of the contemporary critical debate. A relationship impacted by problems of transposition, artistic invention, sedimenting technical skills, and transition from workshop activities to mass production. Even though big efforts were made to maintain the excellent quality of the products in question. At the same time, the historicist, not to say eclectic culture of the late 19th century, was a crucial training ground both theoretically and from the point of view of changes in taste. It was the cultural terrain on which an idea of national style was founded. Horn's target for nationalistic and radical ideological ideas, an attempt was made to develop this style using not only architecture, but in particular all the decorative patterns organically associated with it, and the decorative arts that immediately materialize it. The reference models were those of Renaissance, not in a strictly philological sense, but instead an eclectic version that proposed the shapes, ornamental repertoires, and artisanal techniques inspired by that century's old tradition. The Florentine milieu was very much in line with this kind of taste and with the status of artist craft when Galileo Chini began to work as a restorer and designer in the world of ceramics, where, broadly speaking, medieval and Renaissance models did not prevent an explicit, organic, and innovative focus on the novelties of the modernist language. The plate, with naiad or bather among the waves, bagnante tra le onde, made by l'arte della ceramica between 1898 and 1900, 100, based on the design of Galileo Chini, reveals not only explicit influences from French Art Nouveau graphic, but also from Japanese xylography, widely spread across international collectors and art market. The draw profile of the figures as well as the waves highlights the special character of Italian liberty, that being the wavy, enveloping asymmetrical movement which can be recognized, for example, in this, on the left, in this vase of Giuseppe Aspertini from the Società Ceramica Italiana di Laveno, made in 1900, whose metal setting displays the same undulating and enveloping motion. For comparison, we can see here the very famous vase with daffodils from 1903-1904 of the Museo Internazionale della Ceramica di Faenza, on the right, in which Chini uses a very wavy and serpentine movement by stylized, symmetrical, rhythmic, and elegant. The two objects are the more significant example of Liberty style, together with Gaetano Previati's painting, like the detail of frieze painting around 1908-1910 for a music hall, and with the stained glass by Buffa on the left. Here, for example, the severed head of Medusa becomes an ornamental element through the movement of the snakes, the same as the snake sculpture of Alessandro Mazzuccotelli on the right, around 1904-1906. This new ornamentation was inspired by an awareness that the modern world, urban life, and industrialized society had eliminated their place in history vis-à-vis a consolidated tradition that had continued over the years. There was a return to indistinct nature and, in a sense, to a renewal of brutal materiality of everyday objects and this existence in new rigid architectural spaces. The roots of this organic ornamentation lay in the expressive potential inherent not only in the materials, but also in the forms determined by their function and, above all, the resemantization of naturalistic organic ornamental repertoire. Architecture and ornament in Italy were rarely fused in an organic way and innovative sense of modernity. This precisely happened between Alessandro Mazzuccotelli and architect Giuseppe Sommaruga in Castiglioni Palace in Milan, in the serpentine interweaving of the grates on the ground floor and in all the iron decoration inside. Also, in the facade, some evident elements from the past can be glimpsed to the putti molden on the window frames on the third floor and the overhang the monumental cornice. More coherent and organic appear to be the solution adopted by Sommaruga in Grand Hotel Campo dei Fiori in Varese, 1910-1912. The Liberty style is, however, in the majority of cases, tainted by architectural tradition and eclectic or historical decoration, albeit with some Art Nouveau acceleration like the facade of Malpighi's house in Milan, wherein the iron pieces by Mazzuccotelli resume plastically the floral decoration of the tile covering and the dialogue with the full-length female figures. Floral elements, female heads, and figures as allegories of youth and spring, are beloved themes invented by Chini for the ceramic covering of architecture and on behalf of l'arte della ceramica manufacture first and for Naci San Lorenzo after. Galileo Chini was the artistic director of l'arte della ceramica company from 1897 to 1904. And in 1902, it changed its name to Ceramica Fontebuoni. Around the time it displayed its production of the Turin exhibition. Galileo's creation, big decorative vases, celebratory plates, bowls, and amphorae, bear witness to their influence of the pre-Raphaelite painting and Morris models in Italian decorative art. There are several reasons why these creations were decorated by hand. The artisanal nature of the objects, the indissoluble unity between art and life, and the uniqueness of the individual pieces, albeit serially produced. Apart from some of the theories that circulated during the period, at this point Italy was still far away from industrialization and the mechanical production of pieces which was already being implemented in Germany thanks to the Deutscher Verbund. Moreover, one should not forget that Chini proposed a vast collection of decorative forms and techniques. They include citations of the glorious Renaissance period of Italian Maiolica. For example, the anguiform or phytomorphic handles that become a continuum with the pictorial images. The use of metal lustres, already proposed by Ulisse Cantagalli's Florentine company, starting in 1878. Naturalistic collections of insects, flowers, and marsh plants. The stylism motif of the peacock's tail, thistle flower, and palmets. And finally, exquisitely graphic decoration, or at most, decoration inspired by ancient Greek ceramics. For example, the salt glaze stoneware vases painted in blue or green on a light background that Galileo continued to produce in the new Fornaci di San Lorenzo, which he managed together with his cousins until 1925. In roughly 1902, Chini's decorations had already begun to evolve into his own version of secessionist grammar, combining not only the ideas that come from Munich and Vienna, but also the ones inspired by this own knowledge of wood engravings, Japanese pictorial repertoires, and a specific national evolution of phytomorphic and zoomorphic features that finally shed any asymmetrical and enveloping cadences and were instead organized in rhythmic scansions. This coincides with the more or less total abandonment of albeit stylized Pre-Raphaelite and Art Nouveau female profiles, faces, and landscapes in favor of the geometricized scene and decorative exuberance that are a prelude to Art Deco. At the end of the first decade of the 20th century, Chini proposed the new decorations for the Fornaci San Lorenzo company. They were inspired by his extraordinary experience in the East, 1911-1933, where he worked on the monumental building site set up in Bangkok to decorate King Rama VI Royal Palace. In addition, the company produced huge quantities of titles and decoration for SPA buildings. Montecatini, Tettuccio starting in 1910 and the Porretta SPA building starting in 1940. And 4 small villas in Versilia, like at Spring on the right. All these products have a Klimt matrix. This is also confirmed by Spring that eternally renews itself on the left. The panels Galileo painted for the room hosting the monographic exhibition of the Croatian sculptor Ivan Mestrovich at the Venice Biennale in 1930. However, they also reveal a return to Renaissance and a classical repertoire, with putti either dancing or hoarding laurel and fruit festoons, or fluttering ribbons, and female figures wearing a chlamys combined with backdrops and ornaments that look like a sort of a mosaic surface with schematic, two-dimensional lines. Galileo developed a mature of specific Art Deco vocabulary when he designed and built the decorations for the Lorenzo Bergeri SPA Resort, Spa Resort in Salso Maggiore Terme, maiolica, stained and glass, wall paintings, mosaic surfaces, wrought iron, and furnishings. This undertaking, completed in 1923, reflects the legacy of the Secessionists and Klimt, as well as his Oriental exuberance, and so the combination of these factors produced one of the most fascinating examples of Italian Art Deco, the parable of Galileo Chini's commitment to ceramic production was coming to a close. The final curtain symbolically coincides with the international classification of Art Deco, namely in the second Biennale of Decorative Arts in Monza, and above all, the Exposition Internationale des Arts Décoratifs et Industriels Modernes in Paris, both in 1925. The Liberty style faded away in the moment of his higher creative potential between the first international exhibition of modern decorative art in Turin in 1902 and Sempione's exhibition in Milan in 1906. The Italian declination of Art Nouveau, called Liberty, did not elaborate a personal, coherent, and united modern language. Instead, it stained itself as much as possible with influences from Maurice art and craft, from French Art Nouveau graphics, linear and rhythmic elements of secessions, Renaissance tradition, exotism of various origins, and became characterized precisely by those explicit references. Galileo Chini interpreted with lively, original, unstoppable creative invention these phases of art in Italy, going from a fascination for pre-Raphaelite, combined with the recovery of Botticellian forms and William Morris floral inventions, two-dimensionality and formal reduction of Viennese secession, particularly Klimt, to become one of the most significant protagonists of Art Deco in Italy. However, even in this case, a form of Deco articulated according to the Italian way of thinking and artistic culture. Thank you very much, and sorry for my English very bad.
See how Galileo Chini really presented, inserted himself in the contemporary critical debate. So it was really a nice opportunity to discover his personality, and that was so polyvalent, and his artistic production. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now it's time of Stefania Cretella, a researcher at the University of Verona. I invite Stefania to present, have the title of his speech, Galileo Chini, the spread of Art Nouveau style throughout international exhibitions, because we know how this kind of exhibitions were important for the movement and, of course, for the artist. So please, Stefania.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. No, it's not my PowerPoint. No. I don't know why, but there is a problem. I don't know why. Okay, yes. It's good.
There you are.
Thank you. Before starting, I'd like to say thanks for asking me to be part of this conference. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. As is evident, I'm not a native English speaker, so I prefer reading my speech, and I can also control better the time available. The modern style was a heterogeneous movement rich in variants and linguistic declinations, which changed according to the geographical area of the individual artistic personalities. It was not an organic movement with a theoretical program that indicated the guidelines to be followed. So without a programmatic manifesto, a school, or a coherent group of artists, the new taste followed a different path to define itself. In this context, international exhibitions became one of the preferred instruments, along with the spread of art magazines. Exhibitions were organized in a major European city, following the example of the Great Exhibition in London in 1851 and the follow one in Paris in 1855. The exhibitions played a fundamental role in sharing the novelties proposed by modernist artists. Through exhibition, the new tendency was known not only by other artists, but also by the general public. As I cannot here analyze all the events that took place between the 80s to the First World War, I will limit myself to considering the two most significant moments, which clearly contributed to the spread of the Art Nouveau and its theoretical principle. The Universal Exhibition in Paris in 1900 was the first event in which the first mature and consistent signs of the new taste can be seen. The Universal Exhibition in Paris opened the new century, but the idea of organizing this event dated back to 1892. After 8 years of work, huge financial funding, and complex organizational activities, the French capital succeeded in inaugurating an event of extraordinary quality and variety. This was intended to celebrate the achievements of the past century and to accelerate development into the next. A poster was published to promote the event, showing allegorical figures and a landscape of the city, with the Eiffel Tower clearly visible in the background. Even if the reference to the French capital is evident, some elements show close references to the Moorish Arab world. These were identifiable above all in the decoration of the arches, the group of figures in the foreground, and the architectural style that characterizes the main entrance door to the exhibition. The two allegorical female figures, instead, wear vaguely antique-style clothing and recall the pictorial experiences of pre-Raphaelite artists. Therefore, the poster doesn't seem to indicate a new stylistic orientation, but it is still a transitional graphic work with reference to exoticism, revival, and English arts and crafts. The resources invested by the French state were enormous, and this can be seen by observing the size of the area occupied by the exhibition. The area developed along the left and right banks of the Seine from the Esplanade des Invalides to the Eiffel Tower at the Champ de Mars. 4 permanent structures were built: Gare d'Orsay, Petit Palais, Grand Palais, and the Bridge Alexander III, and tens of temporary pavilions, some built by the organization and other by each one participating nations. The national pavilions were built according to the architectural models of each country, becoming a sort of official manifesto of the state itself. Germany created a Gothic castle with spires, clocks, painted and stucco decorations. The buildings appeared to a compendium of different elements from traditional German architecture. This pavilion was far from the new style that was now becoming established throughout Europe. Italy built a pavilion based on the model of St. Mark Cathedral in Venice. In this photo, we can see the Neo-Byzantine pavilion realized by Greece. The United States proposed a replica of the Capitolium in Washington. China made buildings with typical curved pitched roofs, while Japan showed a red pagoda. There was also a significant participation of the colonies, especially the French ones. They were represented by their traditional architectures. Here, for example, we can see the pavilion of French Algeria. If the architectures still showed strong links with the models of the past, the decorative artworks exhibited by the different nations were oriented towards the new taste. I have selected a few examples to highlight this new trend, and we can start with René Lalique. He was one of the most innovative protagonists of the French section. The area reserved for him was furnished by display cases designed by himself and characterized by the presence of sculptures depicting female nudes imprisoned inside a sort of spider webs. The idea of associating female beauty with terrifying elements was part of the Art Nouveau imagination, and Lalique was a master at finding new solutions and iconographies. This brooch also appeared among the objects in Parisian display cases. It is an object of high artistic gold working, made of precious materials such as gold and opal. The subject is fanciful and blends together a female bust with the body of a dragonfly and the leg of a griffin. The Sèvres manufactory presented a repertoire of Art Nouveau porcelains. This includes the celebrate table centerpieces Les Jeux de l'Écharpe, featuring young maidens in classical dress with playing and dancing, lifting a scarf. Also, the vase with swans is an extraordinary example of Art Nouveau object, characterized by great compositional elegance, soft colors, and perfect execution techniques. Majorel's cabinet is also inspired by nature. The stylized natural forms and whiplash curves decorating this cabinet are typically of his work. The naturalistic elements are sculptured in the cabinet, characterized by unusual forms that have no real historical precursor, and the materials used to derived from a variety of woods, both homegrown and imported from tropical areas. Among the Italian exhibitors, Galileo Chini distinguished himself for the quantity and the quality of his manufacturer's works, which won the highest possible award, the Grand Prix d'Honneur. The collection of fired maiolica chosen for the Paris Fair includes vases of different shapes and sizes, decorative plates, small round plates used to decorate furniture, and a triptych with panels depicted sacred themes are surrounded by wooden frame. The vase with snake-shaped handles dates back to the first production phase of l'arte della ceramica. From the early years of activity, the design of shapes and decorations showed continuous references to paintings and ceramics of the past. They were always interpreted in the light of contemporary, expressive and stylistic innovatives, from English pre-Raphaelite painting, Japanese graphics and ceramics, and Central European culture. Chini's work was inspired by vases with snake handles from the Renaissance period, even if here the interweaving of the snakes is more complex than the original models, in order to accentuate the spiral pattern typically of the Art Nouveau taste. The snake theme can also be seen in the pictorial decoration of the vase, composed of two pictures framed by knocked snakes, following models taken from the German magazine Jugend. The color palette recovers the bright animals in the shades of blue, yellow, green, and brown, typical of della Robbia, Faenza, and Umbrian Maiolica. The use of two-dimensional painting, extremely synthetic and linear, characterized by thick black outlines, is an example of modernist principles. Other modernist elements are the iconographic choices, the execution of the physiognomic feature of the faces, the repetition of the sinuous line, and the persistence of floral and naturalistic topic. The vase with lotus flowers is another extraordinary example of Galileo Chini's ability to combine pictorial decoration with plastic modeling. The shape of the vase evokes the traditional volumes of vessels with a spherical body and extended neck, flared near the lip, while the surface of the maiolica is painted with lotus flowers held by long stems that bend under the weight of the corollas. The distribution of the single elements is designed to follow the shape of the object. The flowers occupy the shoulder of the vase and only in rare cases rise up to the neck, while the stems mark the lower half of the belly. The particularity of the work is given above all by the free handles, which come to life from the body of the vase. The handles are shaped and continued as steam painted on the lower part. When arching slightly, they are inserted in combination with the lip of the vase, modeled in the shape of leaves. The choice of a floral and exotic subject was part of the aesthetic canons of the Art Nouveau, which looked for its sources of inspiration in the natural world, made by soft lines, asymmetrical compositions, and delicate or vivid colors. On one side, the Paris exhibition opened a new century, still showing a transitional situation, with backward positions placed next to works that were fully modernist. On the other side, the next international exhibition marked the actual consecration of international Art Nouveau style. The first international exhibition of modern decorative arts in Turin in 1902 presented the moment of maximum originality and public understanding, at the same time critical and theoretical, of the new artistic phenomenon. The site chosen was the Valentino Park, which offered extensive grounds. The National Pavilion were hosted along both banks of the River Po. They were designed by architects chosen by the foreign committees. the buildings, including the venues for the thematic and collective exhibitions, the common use and the representative space, were entrusted by the Central Committee to the Italian architect Raimondo da Ronco. Unlike in Paris 2 years earlier, da Ronco modeled his pavilions taking inspiration from several references, which allowed him to create original architecture without explicit reference to the past. The round hall, for example, in the central pavilion, is inspired by the Hagia Sophia Mosque in Istanbul. Da Ronco combined several elements like the Islamic suggestions, the flowing Art Nouveau line, the checkered pattern of the Wiener Werkstätte, and the mystical themes of symbolistic culture. The title chosen for the event clearly highlighted the international scope, the priority given to the decorative arts, the exclusion of all other art forms, and the modern character of the exhibition work. Equally significant is the poster designed by Bistolfi to promote the exhibition. Recovering the iconographic of the Three Graces, Bistolfi illustrated a group of young maidens with their hair softly gathered and at the nape of their necks. The girls were wrapped in light, airy dresses of antique model. They are dancing surrounded by a fabric ribbon that draws in the air the Latin word ars. The reference to classicism were, however, reinterpreted and transformed through an in-depth knowledge of the figure experiences of the pre-Raphaelites and Oriental graphics. The artist adapted Botticelli's classical ideal to the new forms of the modern woman, who immediately became the symbol par excellence of the Belle Époque, thanks to the sinuous and serpentine lines of her body, the harmonious and elegant movements, and the preciousness of the accessories and ornaments that increase her femininity. The springtime setting described by Bistolfi was in depth to the Japanese print, especially for the color choices and the balanced relationship between solids and voids. The theme of nature that perpetually renews itself in an unending cycle is comparable to the artistic experience. The sculpture was able to summarize in a single image the guidelines of the exhibition and, more generally, of the new art. He interpreted the main values proposed by the modern style, which can be synthetically identified with the propensity for soft, enveloping lines, free and asymmetrical composition, precious and brilliant colors, the interest in the female figure, and the preference for form taken from the world of nature. The success of Bistolfi's invention is confirmed by the diffusion of the dancing figure theme, which was frequently found within the Turin exhibition. An example would be the sculptural round dance made by Edoardo Urbino for the facade of the central building of the exhibition. Another example was the flower vase produced by the Richard Ginori, formed by 3 female figures who, opening their dresses, made up the body of the container. On the other hand, the theme of the circle and dance had already been addressed by other European artists. Examples include the cover of Jugend of 1897 and the tapestry entitled Spring Ring a Ring of Roses, designed by Hans Christiansen and presented to the Paris exhibition of 1900. The aims of the exhibition were declared in the official program and mirrored the positions taken at an international level, starting from the exclusion of any work evocative of other historical periods. With the passing of time, the need to move away from the eclectic style of the 19th century had become ever more urgent, to allow a radical renewal in the art, architecture, and decorative art. It was necessary to support the development of stylistic and iconographic models capable of interpreting contemporary modernity. This intense struggle against the continuous copying of previous models carried out by the most radical promoters of the new artistic language did not prevent the persistence of local traditions accepted by most artists and critics of the time, as long as they were used as sources of inspiration and transformed to be reinterpreted according to the dictates of the new direction. Considering these openings to the past, one can understand the reasons for the strong relationship detectable between Ernesto Basile's furniture and the Arab Norman past of East Sicily, or between medieval and Renaissance forms at the works of the Emilia Ars repertoire. The sofa and the desk presented by Emilia Ars are clear examples of this design modality. The rigid and architecturally inspired forms recall the Italian furniture tradition. To bring this furniture closer to the new artistic taste, the designer added floral decorations that seems to look like French models, but without the energy and natural movement of Art Nouveau. The same is for the gate. The supporting structure is strictly linear, while the floral inclusion follows a serpentine movement that is too repetitive and schematic, losing the natural freshness that the same type of object from the hand of a French or Belgian master would have had. In other words, it was a moderate and transitional position that attempted to renew antique forms by adding elements taken from the animal and plant worlds. This compromise between tradition and modernity wasn't the exclusive prerogative of the Italian craftsmen, but we can also detect similar attitudes among the Anglo-Saxon artists, and in particular among the exponents of the arts and crafts and the Glasgow School. All the explicitly past elements are reduced through a rationalization of forms and greater search for comfort, so as to give the objects new life and a modern appearance. The same simplification process can be seen in Crane's decorative vessel called Scoal, painted in luster glaze. The subject portrayed, the shape of the vessel, the two-tone red figures on a light background, and the chosen execution technique demonstrate Crane's interest in all historical forms and decoration, especially those of classical antiquity and of the Islamic world. Representing the French production, I show you the music stand that Charpentier presented in a music hall that he totally designed by himself. The work is emblematic for the way in which the cabinet maker solved the problem of the plinth, resorting to a wood that seems to liquefy and turn into a flute, drawing the famous Art Nouveau coup de fouet in the air. Instead, the German and Austrian participation showed the linear alternative of the modern style, preferring objects without decorative excess and with solid, rigorous, geometrically derived compositional structures. Peter Behrens, for example, exhibited an extremely simple three-handled vases painted with monochrome glazes. The purify of form and decoration ensured serial, industrial, and low-cost production. The breakfast service designed by Jutta Sika was also intended for a serial production, made possible by the simplicity of the decorations that could be applied using stencils and airbrushes. The designer reworked the theme of tableware with originality, retaining all the practical characteristics of the individual's object, but adding original detail that make the design unique and modern. The black and white photograph shows the room proposed by the Kohn company with the furniture designed by Koloman Moser. The structure of the cabinet seems reminiscent of the Majorelle cabinet seen in Paris, but a comparison of the two objects clearly shows the difference between Art Nouveau and the Secessionist style. Moser rejected all floral or other decoration in order to emphasize the aesthetic value of construction lines and volumes, alternating solids and voids, straight and curved lines. In Italy, too, there was a more distinctly avant-garde tendency. The Richard Ginori company, Galileo Chini, Eugenio Quarti, and Carlo Bugatti were some of its most valid representatives. Carlo Bugatti is a very special artist on the Italian scene. His furniture, in fact, looks native to the Italian tradition, not to Liberty style, but draws its inspiration from the forms, unusual for the West, of Arab and Moorish architecture, blending them with themes from the plant and animal world, such as the snail-shaped chair for the game and conversation room exhibited in Turin. Eugenio Quarti's inlaid furniture is less original, but extremely elegant and precious, handcrafted from high-quality materials. The practical function of the magazine rack and the decorative value of the object are evident, thanks to the presence of inlays of floral subjects and with the uprights supporting two tops modeled and carved in the shape of flowers. In the ceramic sector, the leading manufacturers of Italian exhibition are Richard Ginori and Galileo Chini's company. The Doccia manufactory is distinguished by its invention that have the female figure as their visual focus. Heads, busts, and entire figures are incorporated into objects, becoming one with them. There are also examples of vases painted with elegant floral motifs and stems moving flexible across the surface. L'Arte della Ceramica was awarded the Diploma of Honor, the exhibition's highest prize. The sampler of objects included tondo with Botticelli-inspired figures, cups and bowls covered in reddish metallic iridescent colors, architectural tiles, stoneware objects, vases painted with plants, birds, reptiles, and felines. In the space at its disposal, the company created two complete rooms, a dining room and a bathroom, in which the wall surface played a fundamental role in giving a unique character to the rooms. The walls of the bathroom were covered with relief frames, separating the two upper parts painted in tempera from the lower part, covered with tiles whose dark green reflections evoke aquatic depth. The big panel on the wall above the bath was decorated with a peacock set in a woodland landscape. The variety of proposals from the different nations participating in the Turin exhibition helped to consolidate the different tendencies, and the success with the public and critics contributed to spread new orientations, also thanks to the hundreds of illustrated articles published in magazines all over the world. The modern style soon became a popular trend, and many artists, craftsmen, and industries, until then remained outsiders, started producing works in the new style. The market became saturated with products laden with floral elements, female figures, and serpentine lines, but without the original freshness of the works created by the true promoters of the style. At the same time, therefore, the Turin exhibition marked the peak of the modernist movement and the beginning of its decline. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania Cretella. Thank you very much. It was very interesting to discover the importance of the international exhibitions at that time. And your speech really let us to better understand the impact of these fairs and exhibitions on the production and on the activities of the artists. So it was interesting also to see how Galileo Chini used this occasion to make him known, but also to really get inspired for his production. So thank you very much. Now I leave the floor to Claudia Casali, the director of the International Museum of Ceramic in Faenza, and also one of the two curators of the exhibition, the current exhibition on Galileo Chini. Please, Claudia.
Thank you very much, Erica, and thank you, Valerio and Stefania, who made some points of this moment. I'm going to show you and to introduce you the figure of Galileo Chini. We organize together this exhibition, which will be in Faenza till May the 14th, and which is an important event because for the first time we are showing around 300 pieces and especially the drawings, the project of Galileo for the manufacture. And then we arrive to the man. This is Galileo Chini, a young Galileo Chini, who started this adventure in ceramic in 1896 with l'arte della ceramica, as already announced. And this was an important event because it was an idea of introducing the ceramic production in modernity. So to evolve what was and to enter in the Art Nouveau movement, Art Nouveau style, Liberty style, and he was one of the great innovator of the ceramic production. He started, as we said, and he participated in different international exhibition. I'm showing you some affiches, some posters that were drawn by him and that were designed by him for the publicity that was very, very important, an important point of his production. So not just the design of the object, but also the part, the commercial part. Sorry. So I know there is a problem in the so did you see the do you see my images?
Sì, le vediamo.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, but there was a problem in the connection. So this is Galileo Chini, as I was saying, and the young Galileo Chini, and this was the advertising of l'arte della ceramica in Florence. As I said, he started in 1896, and he started with proposing designs for ceramic, but also the advertisement. And these are two of the posters that he made for the publicity of the manufacture. And as Stefania said, there were some starting ceramics that comes from forms of the tradition and used the decoration which entered and shapes the form, as already said, with this lotus flower with stems. And what were the main themes that connect Galileo Chini and the manufacturer to Art Nouveau? The main themes were the bucolic nature, this use of typologies of flowers, nymphs and satyrs, the mother nature, the sinuous and the soft lines, and this idea of asymmetric setting of the decoration that belongs to his love for the Japanese arts and prints. So structure and ornaments in his production are very linked. And in the exhibition, as I said, we will show different drawings and different sketch and different design that leads to the idea of the organization of this beautiful maiolica that he designed, thanks to great decoratives women, and thanks to the technical support of the manufacturer. He was able to create excellent pieces that were masterpieces today of Liberty style. And what was important in the production of the manufacturer was the fact that they made a lot of experiments on maiolica and on lusterware. Later on, there will be an intervention on the Zolnay production, and this is the link between Chini and what was made in Europe on the lusterware production. In the exhibition, we have these two beautiful vases with this spatial decoration in relief that is both in maiolica and in lusterware. So there is also this comparison that make the greatness of this of Galileo Chini intuition on his creativity. And as I said, he was in the center of the publicity, and he was leading the publicity and the communication of the manufacturer. In fact, he designed some advertisement, like the picture I show. And these are two settings of the presence in the international exposition, as Stefania Cretella already anticipated. So what was important for Galileo was to be present on European level, on international level. And this gave the manufacturer a great opportunity of spreading the products all around Europe, and also be updated on what were the main thematic, the main decoration of that time, and to develop new personal identity in the production. As anticipated, there are three different productions, one in Florence, one in Fontebuoni, and from 1906 in Borgo San Lorenzo, near Florence, but in the Apennini, Tuscan Apennini. And it was a small city where the family of Galileo were born, but they had in this place the opportunity to enlarge the manufacture, and to create something special that belongs not just on ceramic, but also artistic wrought irons, stained glass, maiolica stoneware, and salted stoneware. So this was an important moving and an important setting of the manufacture, because it gives the possibility of thinking big, of thinking not just of the small object, but also and especially thinking on big architecture, as we would see for Salsomaggiore Bath. Here are some of the photographic albums with all the examples that the manufacturer was selling. But one of the main events for Galileo and for the manufacturer was the Venice Biennale in 1909. We said that Galileo was a painter, a restorer, a designer, and he had the opportunity of expressing his creativity in this important decoration of the Italian pavilion in the Venice Biennale. Still on site, fortunately, in this main hall. This was an event that gave him the opportunity of connecting with the king of Thailand, the king of former Siam. Then he had this connection and this opportunity of organizing, of making a big trip to Thailand, making a big project for the king. Because he moved to Thailand in 1911 till 1913. So this was an event that created and was an experience, an important experience also for the development of his creativity. He made it the wall painting of the Throne Palace in Bangkok, and this affected the design of the ceramics, new colors, new shapes, more arabesque, more decoration. That will be seen in the lusterware production of the later years. Here we have different objects that he designed and that the manufacturer created with this oriental mood, with this idea taken from the experience of the trip in Thailand. And of course, the palette of the color changed. If the very beginning was this light green, light blue, light yellow, then everything moved and changed. And the lusterware became fundamental, and the decoration was very, very rich. I put some examples of this drawing that were strictly linked to this the realization of these ceramics. We had the opportunity, thanks to the archive of the manufacturer, the Chini manufacturer in Borgo San Lorenzo, to find these drawings that gave some ideas also of the design that Galileo tried to express to the decorative part of the manufacture. In all the drawings, we can see some suggestion of the colors, some suggestion of the lines that has to be put in the decoration. And sometimes he put also the shapes, like in this beautiful potiche. And sometimes he put also some suggestion.
Si vedono le slide, non le vedi tu? E tu le vedi, io condivido, non le vedo. Okay, dillo che non mi dispiace, non riuscite a vedere.
I realize now that there are some problem in sharing
Yes.
the...
Ok, prova a selezionare le cose così, queste, non andare avanti così. Stai così,
Okay.
seleziona qui, così, da lì.
Ok. I think that now you are able to see my PowerPoint. I think that there are also some problem of connection, but it's a pity. Okay, so I will try. If somebody could tell me till when did you see the...
Funziona, devi andare avanti.
Okay, so this is the Throne Palace in Bangkok. Okay, I don't know if you saw it. This is the decoration of the Italian Pavilion Venice Biennale. Okay, and these are the production after this big and great trip to Thailand, Siam. I can show you the images I was commenting. These are the drawings. The potiche, the beautiful potiche that he tried to design. Okay, and in these beautiful drawings that he was producing for the manufacturer, it was interesting to see that he put also some suggestion. For example, in this drawing, we see half of the piece that could be made with this abstract part or with a bird. So there are two choices that the decorator could afford, or like in this case, other simple advices that can be used in this beautiful and amazing engraving decoration. There are different developments in Galileo's design. An example can be seen, for example, in the peacock theme, which started in a very, very realistic way with the liberty suggestion, and that can be seen in different beautiful plates and vases, like in this case, this lusterware decoration, that arrive in a very synthetic, minimalized decoration that anticipate what will be more the deco taste that is very common in the second part of the production of the Chini manufacture. So we have both this liberty part and the deco taste, and these pieces are unique and very modern in their opportunity of producing and reproducing this abstract part using beautiful colors, and you see that the palette of color completely changed. Not just maiolica and not just lusterware, but he also used the salted stoneware, especially in the production and design of the pieces of the years 20s. Here I put some examples of these more popular objects that were that had a great success of production, and that were completely exhibited in Paris 1925. Another theme that was present and that put on the thematic of the thermal bath. So water, fishes, creature of the sea, like in the Japanese tradition of the carps and the starfish. So this is one of the masterpieces of that Galileo designed for the production of these beautiful plates that have both the part, the very naturalistic part of the fishes, and the center is very abstract, that it is hypnotizing the visitor when is catching the eyes of the person who is viewing this beautiful piece. And the drawing of these fishes are the base of many masterpieces, like for example this one, the carps that are always present as in the Japanese tradition as a good wishing well. And in this beautiful cashpo belonging to the collection of our museum, we had the opportunity of seeing also these beautiful colors put in the decoration. But there are also these creature of the sea that are not so positive like the carps that are showing in this important colors and decoration, the starfish, and we had the chance to have to find in the archives and in private collection the drawings and the design that leads to this beautiful plate. The conclusion is with this important deco architecture. So the experience in Bangkok, in the experience of this oriental important trip in the life of Galileo, arrive to the decoration of Salso Maggiore Terme Berzieri. This year we will celebrate 100 years anniversary, because it was open in May 1923, and we can see some the beautiful decoration of the external part with this element, these ceramic elements that are part of the marble facade, and they are beautifully decorated and designed. And the manufacturer produce not just the ceramic, but also the internal wall paintings, the stained glass, the wrought irons. So it was a complete work of architecture, a complete work that that was the great event for the manufacturer. Around 200 workers were included for finishing this big work, this big job. And yes, Galileo organized also and drew also the decoration of the wall painting. So it was a great success, that leads to another work for the manufacturer in the 30s that was Castrocaro Terme. So this was, we can say, the last big intervention of Galileo for proposing the design of to the Chini manufacture. This is a picture of Paris 1925. Galileo ended the collaboration, and all the projects, all the design remained to the manufacturer, and that was the great treasure which was used in the years. Many drawings, project, sketch that were and are also today an extraordinary source of inspiration in the years for the Chini production. Today, the manufacturer is still working as Piccioli Chini in the same place, Borgo San Lorenzo, and it is more devoted to tiles production. But the importance of and evidence of Galileo design was clear to everybody, because the most important years of production of this great manufacturer, Italian manufacturer, in the Art Nouveau and Deco style were the ones when Galileo was collaborating. This is a picture of Galileo leaving the house in Borgo San Lorenzo, which is still a beautiful Liberty casino where the family is living. And yes, I'd like to leave my introduction and my speech with this picture, because it is a way of entering the time of where Galileo lived. So thank you very much, and apologies, but I had this bad connection and interaction with this PowerPoint that was not sharing. So sorry, very sorry for this inconvenience.
No, but thank you, Claudia. Despite of that, you've been really incisive, and thank you for this wide overview that let us to understand how complex and polyvalent was the experience, the artistic experience and activities of Galileo Chini. We saw how he was drawers and, of course, ceramist, and but also really painter, because as it's well shown in the exhibition, his drawings are really also painted. So thank you for that. And it's now it was also interesting because it allowed us to arrive to the end of this afternoon, and to approach all the technical issue of the ceramic. And now we can continue with the curator of the ceramic section at the Museum of Applied Art of Budapest. I beg pardon for the way I will pronounce your family name, Radvani. Diana? No, sorry, please.
Yeah, the family name is Radvani and Diana is the first name. Yeah, thanks.
Yes. So, and with Diana, we will really discover a part of the technical issue of the family Zolnay, the Zolnay factory in Budapest, who influenced also Galileo Chini. And so please, it will be an important occasion for us to better understand his activity on this point of view as well. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you to invite me. And thank you for Stefania Mazzoli that's helping in my PowerPoint. So first, first apologize of my pronunciation. I try to be understanding. The Johnny factory is still in operation, and it was founded in the 1950s. And its creations represent a triumph of Hungarian applied arts. By 1900, the splendid art ceramics of the Joannai, especially its Art Nouveau pieces, had achieved a highest recognition in world expositions through Europe and in the United States. The next picture, can I have? Oh, without detailing the history of the manufactory, let me talk about the most important person, Vilmos Joannai. He wanted to be a painter, but he began his career as a merchant and was middle-aged by the time he took over the direction of the factory, which was started by his brother Ignaz Joannai. Vilmos Joannai was dedicated and spared no time or energy to work on the recovery of the factory. All the family members were involved, and talented artists and professionals were invited, but also trained workers with special knowledge in her factory's own school. While Joannai art ceramics followed international styles and technical developments, they were also quite distinctive. It started in the spirit of historicism and changed to Art Nouveau at the right time, feeling the new winds. With a lot of experiments, Vilmos Joannai tried almost everything that was known from the ceramic art of the previous eras and went further in his own style with innovative solutions. The next, thanks. Experimenting with luster glazes and renewing the technique was one of the successful directions that Vilmos Joannai carried out. He had helpers in the development of the technique. One of the important persons was Vince Varta, a professor of chemistry in whose work ceramics played a major role. The famous university professor and popular lecturer worked together with Joannai from 1891 on luster glazes. There is no doubt that his advice and experiments were essential for the initial steps. But it's also true that the main part of the more than 4,000 formulas in Joannai Vilmos' technical notebook was the work of the factory owner. Vince Varta made his experiments in the laboratory, which was set up at the Technical University in Budapest. The Joannai factory was in Pécs, so in another city of the country. So Varta Vince created in the university an interesting ceramic collection, a study collection of old and contemporary pieces together with his experiments. And this collection was later transferred to the Museum of Applied Arts. So that's why I should present some pieces from the experimental collection. I have to mention another person who was connected with the Joannai factory. Lajos Petrik was also a chemist professor and interested in ceramic and ceramics industry, and parallel with Vince Varta, but the cooperation with the Joannai factory was not well documented and publicated. Okay, I try to speak better. Why started Joannai developing and using luster glazes? I don't think I need to explain the history of luster glazes in Europe. The next picture, thank you. We all know that the technique came from the Middle East and held in high esteem in Renaissance Italy. are you hear me, or you are hearing nothing? And from the beginning, do you hear? Now you can hear me. Oh, and this problem was from the beginning, or from which part?
Don't worry, go. Everything is okay.
Yeah, so I can continue from
Yeah.
this. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, thank you very much, and sorry. So the luster technique, which came from the Middle East and held in high esteem in the Renaissance Italy, again occupied the imagination of ceramic makers in the middle of the 19th century. From the Hungarian point of view, it's important that in 1889 in Paris has been introduced some luster glazed pieces of Pierre Clement Massier, and earlier Theodore Deck wrote his book La Faenza, and in this book he described also the technique. Vilmos Zsolnai, Vince Varta, and Lajos Petrik both visited Paris at time. They saw the exhibition, and the presentation and notes were made at home about it. So Zsolnai understood what the latest trends were and joined them and started his own experiments. The next picture. Thank you. In truth, he has previously experimented with red glazes created by reduction firing, but they discontinued these experiments in 1983, and he was only after the Paris exposition that he once again dealt with Chinese red. As a result of joint experiments with Vince Varta, a procedure was created in its essence is that some parts of the glazed surface were protected with a coating during the reduction firing, by which the covered parts remained white, or by repeating the process in several rounds, glaze exposed to reduction with different durations took on different shades of color. It was an own invention of the Zsolnai manufactory. This technique was called Millennium Technique, the next because it was introduced first on the biggest Hungarian holiday of that time at the exhibition prepared for the 1000th anniversary of the Hungarian conquest. The technique long carried the revival of the great discovery, metallic luster coatings. The basis of the luster technique is red firing. It means extracting oxygen from the coloring metal oxide at high temperatures. It is the reducated firing. The great-grandson of Vilmos Zsolnai, the chemist László Zsolnai, Matyasovsky, wrote that Varta completed the 4-deck paints with further 3 non-cuprous gold luster color. On a white ground glaze, the non-cuprous gold luster produced only a faint gold color, but on a blue ground glaze, it gains a clear green gold or blue gold effect. The next picture we can see. Oh, I left something. So on the Millennium Technique, with the Millennium Technique made pieces, you can see the surface. It's iridescent and it's a luster glaze. And the next picture, thank you. So it's a little bit different from the Millennium Technique that later Zsolnai began to use the transparent luster glazes, and with this decoration, to make this decoration, that the technique is that the pieces have an underglaze or a base glaze, which is in the middle. The leopard has only this glaze, it's turquoise. And after that comes the luster, the transparent luster, and the color became this red, green and blue and iridescent color. Vilmos Zsolnai made additions to this series up to 58 variations. Fortunately, this sample sheet intended for internal factory use was discovered 2 decades ago, showing the variety of luster glazes. Anecdotal evidence suggested that Vilmos Zsolnai and Vince Varta named the red luster glaze Eosin after the first blush of dawn represented by Eos, the female figure of dawn in Greek mythology. However, the name Eosin had been used earlier in the textile industry for red colors. But Vilmos Zsolnai adopted this term with good marketing sense, and it's still used today referring to Zsolnai glazes. The first Eosin objects were made even more in the spirit of historicism. But in autumn 1997, the Zsolnai company started preparing for the 1900 Paris World Exhibition and coming up with completely new forms, ornamentation, and technical features. This vase is one of the results of that work, a striking example of the poetic decorative art produced in the new style, the Art Nouveau. This vase was represented on the exhibition, the expo, and after showing that, the National Hungarian Applied Arts Society represented it to our museum. The Zsolnai technique has been perfected with countless variations and innovations. It's not known what the main reason for the change of style was, but it's also true that Miklós Zsolnai, son of Vilmos, took on a greater role this year. The next picture, thank you. Thank you. Miklós Zsolnai played a major role in the life of the factory, not as an artist, but as a leader and organizer. And Vilmos involved him in the work as early as 1878. On the following pages, I would like to show just a few examples of the variability and beautiful objects that were made after this period. These 2 pieces are with Labrador glaze. It was the last color of Eosin glazes after the red, yellow, and green. And the name is because it's similar to the Labradorite stone. The next, thank you. These objects are even more associated with historicism, and we can see also the pieces from that style. Thank you. Next. Thank you. The luster glaze was combined with other glazes as well. In these examples on matte glaze, top on the matte glazes are the Eosin decoration, to paint the flowers, or to have the decoration is like a metal socket. The next, thank you. The luster glaze were used also on acid etched base glaze as well, and it was a very poetic effect could be achieved with this acid etched ground glaze. And with variations of underglaze and with variations of different colored luster glazes, could be arranged big variation of the ceramics and the decoration. The next picture, thank you. The variation was unended, and the many genre pieces are different and have big variations. They used the housing glaze also without underglaze. On this piece you can see it, and the body of the ceramic is different in this by this vase. It's a chamot stoneware. The common body was the creamware on the genre pieces. The next, please. The factory began in that time to apply landscapes and still lifes on three-dimensional forms such as vases and jugs, and these decorations brought the outdoors inside. Landscape panoramas evoke an ideal pantheistic world. These pieces are technically really complex and are as a painting in a 3 dimension. The next, I would like only just mention that Zsolnay was also pioneer in architectural ceramics in Hungary, and the luster glaze played a big role in the indoor architectural ceramics as well. The next, thank you. For the end, the international successes of the Zsolnay factory. The new style, the Art Nouveau, and the luster glazes were introduced at Paris in 1900, but the Zsolnay factory was known as and recognized in the international stage earlier. It began in 1873 in Vienna. From that year, the factory took part on every important international exhibitions, recognizing the importance of international introduction. It also received a lot of attention at the 1878 Expo in Paris with the high glazed creamware ceramics in the style of historicism. Vilmos Zsolnay found a financial partner in that time, so the Zsolnay was introduced at the world market. And the next years, Zsolnay was introduced as well in Australia and in the USA. I would like to show only 2 examples from world exhibitions in Paris and from Milano. The photos are in our archive, and you can see the Zsolnay pavilions or the exhibited objects, and some objects are in our collection. Mainly, these are not sure the same objects because it was made more pieces in the same form and in the same decoration. After the death of Vilmos in 1900, the ownership of the factory passed to his son, Miklós Zsolnay. Then during the period associated with him, the factory reached the apogee of his success. It was awarded the top prizes in every competition during 10 years in every exhibitions for the work in the spirit of Art Nouveau and early Art Deco. Work on this period was characterized by the eosine metallic luster glaze technique, which had been developed earlier by Véron Journay. Thank you your attention. The last picture. And if you would like to see our Journay collection, you can see it on our museum's database. We have a quite good database, and the Journay pieces, more than 1,050 pieces are there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diana. It was really interesting, and I invite all the public to discover how Galileo Chini adopted these techniques in his production at the exhibition that it's currently in Faenza. Thank you very much. Before to say goodbye, I would like to leave the floor again to Benedetta Diamanti. I think for the last greetings from Faenza. Please, Benedetta.
Thank you, Erika. It was very, very interesting to hear about the variety of experiences and artistic expressions in Europe related to Art Nouveau, to the artistic dimension of Galileo Chini, and of course to ceramics, but not only. I think this is the proof of the fact that the cultural itineraries have many topics that they could share together, exploring different point of view. Therefore, people having different interests and also roots having different topics may come together and organize occasion with this. We are very, very, very happy. It was really very interesting. In fact, one of the tasks of the cultural roots of the Council of Europe is really to create such opportunities in order to improve their cultural offer of the territories. Also in collaboration with the major institution of those territories and of the world of culture and arts. So many thanks to everyone, and hope to meet you again on the way of the cultural roots of the Council of Europe and on the way of arts.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benedetta. Indeed, it was really a nice occasion to share a good practice, and I hope that it's just first of a few coming occasions.
Yes.
Before to say goodbye, the very last things, please do not remember, I would like to remind you that the video of this workshop will be available on the YouTube channel of the International Museum of Ceramic. So thank you once again to have been with us this afternoon, and see you. Bye.